If you're the nice guy, you've already been chosen, not for love, for use. They picked you because you're safe, soft, predictable. And if you think kindness will protect you, then you haven't seen how predators behave in suits and smiles. The more you explain, the more they extract. So let's make something clear. Kindness without power is not virtue. It's an invitation to be devoured. The lie you believed. They told you being nice was everything. That if you smiled enough, waited your turn, kept your voice low, and your needs even lower, one day, someone would reward you for it. That someone would say, "You've been so kind, you deserve it all." And so you believed it. You became agreeable, available, predictable. You answered quickly. You reassured even when you were the one hurting. You helped even when they forgot to say thank you. You confused this performance with goodness, but you weren't being good. You were being liked, and the difference is fatal. Carl Jung warned us, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But you never did. You accepted the version of yourself that was safe for others, the version that didn't provoke, didn't disrupt, didn't challenge, didn't feel too much. You became the man who softened himself to be digestible, the man who made himself so convenient he became disposable. It started early, didn't it? Maybe it was a parent who only praised you when you were quiet, a teacher who rewarded silence more than courage, a friend who only stuck around when you didn't say no. Somewhere along the way, you learned, if I'm nice enough, they'll love me. If I'm agreeable enough, they'll choose me. If I don't speak up, I'll stay safe. But safety isn't peace, and silence isn't respect. What you called emotional maturity was often self-abandonment in disguise. You smiled through discomfort, apologized when you were the one being mistreated, laughed at jokes that made you feel small, stayed in rooms that drained you because you were afraid to walk out. You gave and gave and gave until the world saw you not as someone generous, but as someone free. You thought being endlessly nice made you lovable, but it only made you accessible. And here's the brutal truth no one told you. When you train people to expect everything from you, they never feel grateful, they feel entitled. Erich Fromm wrote, "The quest for approval is the death of authenticity." And that's what you traded: authenticity, spine, selfhood, for approval wrapped in politeness. You didn't build connections, you built transactions, ones where they gave you crumbs of attention, and you paid with full course devotion. But you kept doing it because somewhere, deep down, you still believed the lie. If I'm kind enough, they won't leave. You started calling your pain patience, your silence compassion, your compliance emotional control. But your body knew better. You felt it in the exhaustion that wouldn't leave, in the resentment that bubbled under your smile, in the tension behind your kind tone. You weren't okay. You were trained. People didn't walk over you because they were cruel. They did it because you never taught them not to. You never said no. You never expressed your limits. You never allowed them to feel the cost of disrespect. They crossed boundaries that you never made visible. They took because you never made them earn what you gave. This wasn't fate, it was a pattern. And Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So look at your life. Look at the friendships where you were always the planner. Look at the relationships where you were always the forgiver. Look at the jobs where you were always the one picking up the slack. You didn't end up there accidentally. You were trained to be that man, the one who says it's fine when it's not, the one who says don't worry about it when it's eating you alive, the one who says I just want everyone to be okay, while your own needs rot in the background. But ask yourself this: where has that gotten you? Has being the nice guy made them value you, or just depend on you until you're empty? Has being available earned you loyalty, or just drained you of your edge? Has being good made you powerful, or just forgettable? There's a reason the world doesn't run on niceness, because niceness without clarity becomes manipulation. You wanted them to love you without ever showing them the real you. You wanted to be seen without ever standing your ground. You wanted to be respected without ever making them feel what it costs to disrespect you. But that changes now because you're no longer here to be liked. You're here to be respected. And that starts with destroying the lie you were trained to believe. You don't need to become cruel, but you do need to become clear, because niceness without power isn't kindness, it's a leash. And from now on, you don't wear leashes, you build thrones, the pattern that trained them. You think they changed, that over time they started treating you differently, that the calls stopped, the tone shifted, the warmth faded, that something in them broke the balance, but that's the illusion. They didn't change, they adapted to the pattern you created. You were the one who over-delivered, over-explained, overstayed. You taught them that your time had no cost, that your presence was a given, that your silence was submission. You were training them with every "it's okay," with every "don't worry about it," with every favor you didn't even wait to be asked for. They didn't become entitled, you taught them entitlement, and it happened slowly. At first, they were grateful, then comfortable, then expectant, then resentful. When you didn't give more, that's the dark paradox of overgiving. It doesn't build loyalty, it builds expectation. And when you finally reach your limit, they don't respond with empathy, they respond with confusion or anger, because you changed the terms but never signed a contract. And now they feel cheated by a gift they never deserved to begin with. Carl Jung said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." And what you did was sacrifice yourself, piece by piece, in the name of harmony. You gave even when you had nothing left. You agreed even when you were breaking inside. You apologized for being human, and they took it as permission. They started believing you don't need appreciation because you kept showing up without ever asking for it. They started thinking you don't need space because you never made them feel the weight of crossing a line. You became the man who was always there, always answering, always smoothing the edges, but no one respects a cushion. They just sit on it, then forget it was ever there. You became the emotional janitor, cleaning up other people's messes in the hope they'd finally notice your effort. But they didn't. Not because they're cruel, but because you trained them not to. And now they don't understand your silence, your distance, your edge, because they've only known the version of you who bent, softened, smiled, folded. But that version is dying now, and in its place, something colder is rising. Not out of hatred, but out of clarity. You're not here to serve every emotion that walks into the room. You're not here to be chosen because you're easy. You're here to be respected, and that means breaking the pattern that made you easy to forget, because the man who is always there is never valued, and the man who never leaves is never chased. The shift. When you vanish, you didn't slam the door. You didn't scream or post a final message or craft a dramatic exit. You didn't burn bridges, you just stopped showing up. No explanation, no closure, no warning. And for the first time in your life, you didn't say sorry, you withdrew. Not out of revenge, but out of revelation. And suddenly everything changed. See, when you were always there, always reachable, agreeable, dependable, they didn't feel lucky, they felt entitled. You were never seen as rare, because you never made them earn your presence. You answered before the second ring. You showed up before they even confirmed the time. You anticipated their needs before they ever considered yours. And so when you disappeared, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was disruptive. Suddenly, their texts feel colder. Their jokes fall flat. Their rhythm is off because the man who held it all together just vanished, not out of malice, but because you finally remembered something. Your energy is not infinite, your time is not free, and your presence is not a donation. Now they're confused, worried, angry. They send vague check-ins. Hey, haven't heard from you. Everything good? You've been distant. But those aren't invitations. They're withdrawal symptoms. They don't miss you. They miss access to you because they never really saw you. They saw what you did for them. And now that you've stopped doing, they're forced to face a version of you they never bothered to know. Carl Jung wrote, "People don't see things as they are, they see them as they are." And the person they saw was their reflection in your kindness, their comfort in your patience, their control in your availability. But now that you've gone quiet, the mirror cracked. And they're left staring at something they never wanted to see, the truth, that they didn't value you, they used you, and they built an entire emotional ecosystem around the assumption that you'd always say yes. Your silence shattered that. And silence is louder than confrontation because silence doesn't need to argue, it doesn't defend, it doesn't chase, it simply vanishes and forces people to confront themselves. Now they sit in their own noise, their own imbalance, their own absence of power, and they call it discomfort. But it's not discomfort, it's exposure. Because your silence is not passive, it's a mirror, a cold one. And no one likes what they see in it. They'll call you COLD now, say you've changed, label your stillness as arrogance, your distance as cruelty. But that's not an insult, it's a confession. It means they noticed, and it means they've lost something they never learned how to respect when it was given. You didn't walk away for attention, you walked away to reclaim your center, to leave the stage they built for you with a script that never fit. And the moment you did, you became untouchable, not because you're cruel, but because you no longer explain your kindness to people who mistook it for weakness. What they feel and won't admit. They won't admit it. They'll say you've changed, that you're distant, that you're acting different, that you're cold, but none of those words are about you. They're about the loss of control, because when you were always available, they knew exactly how to access you, exactly how to get what they wanted. You were predictable, and predictability breeds comfort. But the moment you changed your rhythm, you took that comfort away, and now they don't know how to act. You didn't scream, you didn't block anyone, you didn't explain, you just stopped. And that stillness, that's what's making them spiral, because people don't panic when you're gone. They panic when their access to you is gone. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you that always picked up, always said yes, always carried more than he should. You were their mirror. You reflected their best self back at them, patient, important, centered. But now the mirror is cracked, and they're forced to see themselves without your shine, without your smile to soften their guilt, without your "it's fine" to protect them from consequence. That's why they're uncomfortable. Not because you're gone, but because they've never had to sit with themselves without you smoothing the edges. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And you were the shield that kept them from doing that. Every time they were careless, you forgave. Every time they pulled away, you leaned in. Every time they forgot your effort, you gave them more, so they never had to feel the impact of what they did. You absorbed it. But now you're not absorbing anything. You're reflecting it, and your silence is a mirror they can't shatter. They'll try to provoke a reaction, to test if you still care, to bait you back into being the old you. Because if they can get you to react, even in frustration, they still have a hook in you. But when you don't respond, when you stay quiet, that's when the panic sets in, because the absence becomes real. The dynamic is broken, the pattern is dead, and now they're left with the echo of a rhythm they never learned to respect while it played. They don't feel guilt, they feel exposure. And exposure makes people uncomfortable, because now they're seeing their own selfishness, their entitlement, their carelessness, without your kindness to cover it. And the truth is, they weren't confused when you were giving too much. They were comfortable. They only started asking questions when you stopped bleeding on command. They'll say you're distant. What they mean is you're no longer predictable. They'll say you've changed. What they mean is you've stopped carrying the weight they dropped on you. They'll say you're cold. What they mean is they don't know how to get to you anymore. And that's power. The rebirth. You rewritten. Transformation, presence, emotional sovereignty. You don't react now, you radiate. They used to call you the nice one, the dependable one, the easy one, the soft-spoken one who never made it complicated, never pushed back, never made anyone uncomfortable. But now they pause when they speak to you. They second-guess their words. They hesitate before they ask you for something because you've changed and they can feel it. You move slower but heavier. You speak less, but every word lands with weight. Your kindness hasn't vanished. It's just no longer available to everyone. You've shifted from being generous to being selective, from being agreeable to being aware, from being soft to being solid. You're no longer trying to earn presence in someone else's life. You've become the presence. And it's not loud, it's not flashy, it's quiet, rooted, undeniable. Carl Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming the self, the full self, not the mask, not the obedient role, but the whole. And this is you shedding the mask. You don't feel guilty for not replying right away. You don't apologize for needing time. You don't explain yourself to people who once mistook your transparency for weakness. You're no longer bending to be palatable. You're standing in full, not asking, will they accept me, but declaring, this is who I am now. You used to wait for recognition, for someone to say, you're doing enough, you matter. Now, you walk into a room and the energy shifts. Not because you're trying to be impressive, but because you've stopped shrinking. You've stopped trying to be easy and started being real. You don't fill silence with apology. You let it speak for you. You don't rush to rescue other people's discomfort. You let them sit in it because you've learned if you're always soft, they will never know how strong you are. And if you're always available, they will never know what it means to miss you. You don't raise your voice, but your posture is different. Your eyes hold stillness. Your silence feels intentional. You don't react. You respond when it serves you, when it's aligned, when it's earned, and when it's not. You let the space fill with uncertainty because the man you're becoming no longer rushes to reassure people who took your peace for granted. This is rebirth, not as someone new, but as someone true. You were never meant to be the one who gave and gave until nothing was left. You were meant to give from fullness, not fear. You were never meant to be agreeable. You were meant to be respected. You were never meant to chase recognition. You were meant to embody it. Let them say, you've changed, because you have. Let them call you distant, because you've created distance from who you used to be. Let them misunderstand your silence, because your silence is no longer permission, it's power. You don't seek peace anymore. You are the peace. You don't demand respect anymore. You radiate it. You don't explain yourself anymore. You embody who you are. This is the rebirth. You, rewritten, unapologetic, unshakable, unmistakably sovereign. Silence is the new sovereignty. Don't expect applause when you go quiet. Expect discomfort. Expect confusion. Expect whispers. Because your silence forces people to hear the truth they've been avoiding. When you were always available, they took it as a sign that you needed them, that your kindness was automatic, that your presence had no cost. But now that you're quiet, they don't know what you're thinking, they don't know how you feel. They don't even know if they still have access to you. And that uncertainty, that's what power feels like. They say you've changed, but what they mean is they can't reach you like they used to. They used to control the dynamic with silence. Now you own the silence, and the person who controls the silence controls the room, because the one who speaks first reveals need, the one who explains shows insecurity, the one who reacts gives up the frame, but the one who holds, waits, observes, that's the one who becomes untouchable. Machiavelli warned us, it is not necessary to be good, only to appear good. When goodness protects power, but when it threatens power, it must be discarded. And Carl Jung wrote, "He who looks outside dreams, but he who looks inside awakens." You've stopped performing, you've stopped pleasing, you've stopped responding on command, you've awakened. And now your silence isn't just absence, it's a signal, a declaration, that you are no longer someone to be managed, you are no longer someone to be summoned, you are no longer a mirror for their comfort, you are a wall they can't scale. They'll say your distance is ego, they'll say you're arrogant, that you're not the same anymore. But what they're really saying is, I don't know how to get what I used to get from you. And you don't flinch, because you no longer move to be understood, you no longer explain your boundaries, you no longer justify your peace. Your silence has become a weapon, not to attack, but to protect. Because what they don't understand, you're not withholding connection, you're withholding yourself from people who never earned it. This is not revenge, this is refinement, not disappearance, elevation. You are no longer here to be liked, you are here to be remembered. And the ones who are remembered are never the loudest. They're the ones who walk away and don't look back. They leave the room quietly, and the silence echoes long after they're gone. So let them guess, let them wonder, let them feel the absence of the man they thought they could always reach. Let them chase the shadow of someone they didn't respect until he went still. Because now, you don't react. You don't explain. You don't negotiate. You calculate. You conserve. You command. If this speaks to something real in your bones, write it in the comments. My silence is my sovereignty. And if you're done being the man who was always available, always agreeable, always explainable, subscribe. Not to follow noise, but to protect your voice. Because now you are not the storm, you are the sky behind it, still, unshaken, and impossible to move. If you're done being the man who over-explains, overgives, and gets overlooked, then this isn't just a video, it's your turning point. Subscribe now, not to join a channel, but to mark the moment you stopped begging for respect and started commanding it. Share this with the version of yourself who needed to hear it years ago. And let others feel what you've finally reclaimed, your time, your silence, your power. And if this spoke to something real inside you, if you're tired of being predictable, type it below. I don't owe noise, I command through silence. Because from this moment forward, you don't just move different. You exist different, and the world will feel it.